Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa.
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs. Hey, welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast, Chiefs post-game show. It is a victory party. Patrick Allen here with you, as always. We'll be joined shortly by our pal Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated. The Chiefs finished the season with a win. It was ugly, but they won it with their backups, 13-12 over the Los Angeles Chargers and Easton Stick. Some fun things to break down from this game, and then we'll talk about the AFC playoff picture. Before we get into all that and before Matt joins us, just wanted to let you know, if you haven't downloaded the FanDuel Sportsbook yet, you will definitely want to take advantage of this limited time offer. After signing up, new users must deposit $10 and place a first wager of $5 on any active line. Even if your first bet loses, you will still receive $150 in bonus bets. This promo will be automatically added to your account when you sign up using our link, bit.ly/arrow150. Using our link not only gets you this fantastic bonus, but it also directly supports the Arrowhead Addict team. So if you haven't signed up for FanDuel, make sure you do that by scanning the QR code on the screen or by clicking the link in the description below. That's bit.ly/arrow150. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 and older and physically present in a legal gambling state. Please do remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode description for our sign-up link and the full terms of the offer. As Matt Verderame joins me, hopefully none of you gambled on this game, because
if you did, you need help.
You need to call the hotline for that one. So the Chiefs win this one, and what I'm calling a historic duel, an epic duel between Blaine Gabbert and Easton Stick. Verderame, I kind of have fun with games like this. When there's some players you kind of want to watch play, and there's a little bit of storyline there, right? It's fun to see the beat the Chargers with their backups, right? Like, that's fun for the rivalry. There was some fun storylines here, but I guess one thing that stood out to me, and I want your take on this, if Blaine Gabbert, we talked about this on Thursday, if Blaine Gabbert does have to come in,
it's over.
The Chiefs are in trouble.
Oh God, it's over.
Even for a short time.
Oh, it's over. It's over. If he even looks at the field, they go down 7 points.
Yeah,
he was terrible. He was really bad. But he ran like Michael Vick on the last couple of plays there.
He did win. Look, he did lead them on a game-winning drive. I mean, hats off to him for that.
I mean, he went 15-30 for $154, but he ran for 46 yards. So, all right.
Yeah.
200 total yards out of Blaine Gabbert, no touchdowns, one hilarious interception. Defensively, I get it. The Chargers are terrible, but Easton stick to the ball 47 times and didn't crack 260 yards. So, that's pretty good with all your backups in there. He sacked him 3 times. Of course, the sack heard around the world there with Chris Jones. Herring got one. Menahu got one that led to that scoop and score by Edwards, which was the coolest play of the game. I mean, look, the bottom line is you hope Wanya Morris isn't concussed. I hope he can come back, play next week. But, I mean, for the most part, the guy out of the game now healthy. And, looked a little bit bad there for a second. Taylor was out. Connor went out. But those guys came back. So, I think all told, you feel pretty good about it. I am most distressed about the fact that MVS didn't play 1 snap in that game. Yeah. Like, it's very, very, very clear that they're like, he's our number 2 receiver. And not loving that.
Tough. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the defense because, the Chargers, they've got injuries. Obviously, Herbert's not playing. Keenan Allen's not playing. They got guys missing too. Yes. But by and large, they're a team that has been out of it for a long time. They're not really resting anybody that's not injured already. They're just kind of playing out the string here and finishing out the season, whereas the Chiefs are they're not showing anything game plan wise. Chargers want to presumably, with the interim coach here, they want to get a win if they can, and they're going for it. And the Chiefs defense goes out there and holds them to 12 points with largely backups, without your two best corners, no Snead, no McDuffie. Now, they did have Chris Jones in there wreaking some havoc at certain points during the game, but you don't have your linebackers. Like, how would you grade this performance by a Chiefs, second unit?
I honestly, I'd give them an A, truthfully. They scored a touchdown. And you're playing. I know they had a few starters in there. Jones played for half and a little bit more, and they had Watson in there out of necessity, and a few other guys. But they really, they didn't play Bolton, they didn't play Tranquil, they didn't play Gay, they didn't play Karlaftis, they didn't play McDuffie. They got their second guys in there. I got to be honest, man. I thought they played great. Now, granted, again, the Chargers are abominable. Okay, let's be real too. That team is so beat up; they're not good. But I thought they played really, really well. Overall, like I said, stick through the ball. What is it? 47 times. Yeah, 47 times, 258 yards. They ran for 118 yards, but they ran for 30 times. And Easton Stick had 77 yards. Nobody else had even more than 17. Eckler had 11 yards on 10 carries.
Yeah.
So, all told, the Chargers had 4.4 yards per play. That's nothing. Here's a crazy number. The Chargers had 19 third downs. That's insane. Like most games, 10, maybe 11, 19. I thought Chiefs did really well defensively. I really did.
Felix Anyudike Uzama was out there. Nice diving tackle I noted from him at one point. Had 2 tackles for a loss. You saw some of these guys. Nick Jones had a nice play on I think it was an anticipation play on an option play that the Chargers ran. So, I liked seeing some of these young guys out there. But the guy that stood out to me on the fumble caused by Omenihu that was picked up by Edwards was Jalen Watson. I believe it was Watson on that play. Let me just double check my notes here.
Are you talking about the guy who was blocking downfield?
It was
Williams. It was Josh Williams.
Yes, yeah. I just thought, in a game that doesn't mean anything, you're out there, you're playing. He ran 90 yards with Edwards and escorted him to the end zone and kept engaged. I just thought that was a great hustle play, and I think hats off to the coaching staff for that kind of effort on a play in a game like this.
I agree. And I noticed that in real time as well. That was a great job by the defense, a great job by Joshua Williams. So I thought really played well all night. I thought Connor had a great game too. Connor was all over the place. Yeah. And by the way, 44 for them. Cam Jones. And then it was like Taylor in the first half of the game. It was unbelievable. It was everywhere. So, you know what? Listen, does the game mean anything in terms of seeding? No, it doesn't. But you know what? You get on the plane feeling good. Like, you won that game. I'll say one thing that I know this is a dumb thing. And some people may agree, some people may not, and that's fine. I get both sides of it. I thought it actually kind of meant something to me that Mahomes and that bench was as invested as they were in that game.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams that would have been like, who cares, man? What does it matter? These guys are backups. We don't care. Mahomes was acting like that was like the AFC Championship game. They were into that game, and when Jones got his sack, it was a little bit of a joy that you saw them have at the end of the Bengals game that, frankly, you really haven't seen them have all year long. Like, now, does that mean that they're going to go out next week and win? No, it doesn't. But it meant something to me that they were invested in what happened, that they were invested in their teammates, and it wasn't just one of these like, yeah, we got to get through this and let's just go home.
Yeah, agreed. And you saw that obviously highlighted when Chris Jones got his sack. And I want to talk about whether or not he should have been in the game in a minute. But
he should not have been in the game.
It was cool to see him get the sack after they talked about it as one of the primary storylines of the game. And that was a $1.2 million sack for Chris Jones. That's even for these guys. Look, man, I know some of you might be sitting at home being like, what does Chris Jones care? He's already rich. Man, hey, $1 million is $1 million. Yep. Period. He's got to pay taxes on all the other money he's making. $1 million is $1 million. That's money you can grow. I thought it was really cool the way he reacted, but also, and more importantly, the way that the whole defense in particular just went crazy for him. Yeah. Like they just won the Super Bowl. What does that tell you about the the camaraderie on the team, the way they're coached on the defensive side of the ball.
No, it says something. I mean, it says that they at least care, that they're invested. Again, does it mean they're going to go out and win the Super Bowl? No, of course not. But I mean, it showed that, this has been a long year. They have had to stick together, and a lot of it's been on themselves. I mean, they've beaten themselves in a lot of ways. But like, this has been a year where they've faced a lot more crap than they normally do. They finished the year 11-6, and they finished the year on a high note. They won, 3 of their last 4, their last 2 games. It at least feels like it's going in the right direction. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it's not. We're going to find out here in a week. But it feels at least like they're not cooked. It feels like Philadelphia, they are cooked, man. They are, I mean, well done, on fire. Get them out of the oven before you got to call the fire department cooked.
Yeah.
The Chiefs at least have they have a pulse. They look like they're rolling a little bit. And that's, right now, after all that's happened this year, it's frankly, what else could you ask for? That's probably it.
Yeah, and look, you get to beat a division rival, and I think this game in particular played into their identity as a football team, and the identity that they're going to need to lean into in order to actually advance back to the Super Bowl, which is that they're a defensive team. So to see the backups come in there and have some of those guys get some confidence that, hey, injuries happen in the playoffs. Some of these guys are going to rotate in. They're going to be needed. I mean, what about Malik Herring in this game? At the end of this game, helping them lock it down. Just all these guys really stepped up. I think it's really exciting. On the offensive side of the ball, I want to talk about Mecole Hardman. So he was targeted 11 times by Blaine Gabbert in this game. 6 receptions for 77 yards. He had a couple nice catches. He did have the one route where he stopped running. It was confusion.
Well, he's got to fit in.
What's that?
He's got to fit in.
Yeah, well, right. Yeah, he's got to
scare the hell out of somebody.
He doesn't want to get cut.
Right.
But I can forgive that a little bit in that he's got zero rapport with Blaine Gabbert. Who knows what kind of play they're calling in that situation. It's sort of a weird game. But I mean, what's your take on him? Because he did have a drop on a screen, again, fitting in, but he made some tough catches, some contested catches, led the team in receptions, 6 for 77 yards. It was clear. I think 2 things were clear to me. One, it was clear that Blaine Gabbert was looking to him over all the other guys out there, which when you look at who else was out there, it makes sense. But also that the Chiefs were trying to get him the ball. They were kind of trying to get him going. Do you think that and they kind of mentioned it on the broadcast, that like Hardman really wanted to be the guy that Mahomes could rely on in the playoffs. Do you think the Chiefs have plans for him in the playoffs as far as somebody who can step up and help them offensively?
I mean, it's really hard to say yes, in the sense that I watched the way that they protected MVS. Watson barely played. You have Rashee Rice. Like, it's pretty obvious those are the top 3 guys. Now, is he above Tony? Gotta hope so. Is he above Ross, who got hurt? Yeah. Is he above Richie James? Probably. I mean, I think he'll play a little bit. I don't think all of a sudden like the worlds are going to change here. Now, if it was up to me, okay, I would cut MVS tonight. I also would cut him a month ago, and I'd be playing Mecole Hardman. But I have a feeling if you're a Chiefs fan, you're going to be sitting here going, man, this is like 2021 when they wouldn't bench Ben Neiman or Dan Sorensen. And they just rode them until the wheels came off the wagon. They're like, that's it. That's what we're playing. And then immediately after the season, we're like, these guys aren't good. Let's get rid of them. Yeah. I think it's going to be the same thing. Like, MVS might get cut as they're walking off the field at their last game of the season. And yet he'll see 65 snaps next weekend. I've accepted the fact that he's going to play 90% of their snaps this week.
Yeah, it is frustrating that he didn't play at all in a game where.
How do you not even try to get him right? Like, how do you not even put the guy out there? And it's like, hey, man, you're terrible. Like, why don't you try to catch 3 or 4 passes? No, apparently no need. No, he's good. He's played well enough all year. He's good to go.
Yeah, you wouldn't want him to get injured. But speaking of injuries, the Chiefs got banged up along the offensive line. Jawan Taylor left the game. Wanya Morris left the game with a head injury. If that was probably a concussion, if that was mild, there's a good chance he could be ready to go next week. Never guarantee with a head injury. You just don't know. It's different for everybody. Did you see a report on what happened with Jawan Taylor?
He was back in the game, so I'm assuming.
Oh, did he come back in? Oh, that's good.
I'm assuming he's fine. He came back in. Connor came back in. So I think the only one. And did Watson? Did he get hurt toward the end of the game?
I didn't see that. I saw Deion Bush got hurt.
He got hurt. I thought Watson got banged up too, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. Connor and Taylor though came back in.
Yeah. So do you think that? I mean, Smith practiced this week a bit, off and on. Do you think the Chiefs will have their starting offensive line back in action, and in a week when they either take on the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Miami Dolphins?
I mean, I think they'll at least have 4 of the 5 guys. I don't know if they're going to have Morris, but if they need Smith, they got Smith. I mean, I think one of those 2 guys is playing.
Yeah.
So I think one of them is playing, but who knows? That's impossible to say.
Anybody else that stood out to you offensively in this game? I mean, obviously, LaMichael Pirine got some run, 21 carries, 76 yards. He caught a couple. He did a nice job he showed a little bit of hands in the passing game. Had a nice catch and run for 25 yards. But is he anything more than just a replacement level back for you at this point?
No, I think he's what he is, which is fine. But that's what I think he is.
You got to have depth, especially at that position. There's really nothing I think. What about Richie James? Now, I don't know how many snaps he played in this game. But if he did, is it deflating that he has 2 catches in this contest?
He's not seeing the field. I mean, let's just be honest. I think at this point it's pretty clear. He's going to be a reserve receiver who's going to field punts, and his biggest moments in the playoffs are probably going to be fielding punts. Like, you've got to be able to make a play, and if nothing else, don't make a bad one. Like, just catch the ball, don't be a disaster. So, listen. I mean, I think all told, the biggest takeaway from today is that the season's over. Regular season is over. You're 11-6. You're the 3 seed. Like, for the Chiefs, the last handful of years, that feels like a disaster. But in reality, like, you're in a pretty good spot, like, compared to a lot of teams in the league. Like, you're right where you need to be. And if they play well, that God knows they're capable of beating anybody. And I'll be honest, I don't know how you feel about this. We haven't talked about this. I don't care who they play in the first round; they ought to beat them. Now, they may not. They may piss away some game, but the Steelers, they should beat by 30 points. And the Dolphins are kind of like a dead team walking right now with all these injuries. I mean, if they can't beat the Dolphins in 10-degree weather at home with half that team either missing or like playing at 70%, I mean, that's an embarrassment. They should win either one of those games. And then you know what? If you do, you're either going to Buffalo or you're going to Miami. Fine, play the game out. But I think if you're the Chiefs, I think no matter who they play in the wild card, and I think Pittsburgh's the easier team to play. They should beat Miami, man. I mean, that team at this point, come on. That is not a team the Chiefs should lose to. And I think the Chiefs are pretty well matched up with them, quite honestly, with the way they play. So I think the Chiefs draw is fine. It's got to go out and they got to execute for once.
Yeah, agreed. Shout out to Lars Jorgensen for the super chat. MVS didn't drop a single pass. Yo, I'm going to go ahead and call this one a confidence builder. That's something, right? No drops from MVS.
It's got to be, I think, at this point. I think it's the best game he's played all year.
Yeah. Terrific job by MVS in this one. Okay. I want to talk about the AFC playoff picture and the game tonight, but let's just give some arrowheads really quickly to wrap this one up. Who gets an arrowhead for you for the Chiefs finishing the season on a win?
I guess I'll say Harden. I mean, he had 77 yards receiving, so he did a nice job. Played well, showed what he can do with some targets, and listen, I thought he came in, and I think sometimes as a veteran, it's hard to play in those games. Mean nothing. He played hard, he played well, so I give him credit.
Yeah, I'm going to give one to Omenahue. Obviously, maybe the biggest play in the game, causes the fumble. Edwards scoop and score. Chiefs didn't score any touchdowns on their own with the offense, so they needed that. I'm going to go ahead and give one to Blaine Gabbert because, he came in and he won the game, which is what his job is at the end of that situation. Put himself on the line. Didn't need to do that. He's an old dude. He's going to get paid, so good for him. And hopefully we never see him on the field again for the Chiefs, unless Mahomes is like busy and wants him to kneel down for him in a game. All right, yeah. So this wraps it up. Real quick before we get to the rest of the AFC, the Chargers. I tweeted out, they showed a document or a graphic on the screen about how much money the Chargers have tied up in 6 guys.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah, I know.
Next year. I mean, so just real quick, Khalil Mack. These are got 2024 cap hits for the Chargers. Khalil Mack, $38.5 million. Joey Bosa, $36.6 million. Keenan Allen, $34.7 million. Mike Williams, $32.5 million. Derwin James, $19.9 million. And of course, Herbert, $19.3 million. Now, some of those, you can live with. Bosa, all right. Mack, way over the hill. Keenan Allen played great for them this year. Also old, dealing with injuries. Mike Williams is always hurt. I mean, somebody tweeted at me, this is the all IR team, basically. The Chargers are they're attractive in that they have a really good young quarterback. But after that, if you're a head coach and you're looking at that team, or you're a GM, you're cash strapped, man. I mean, what are you going to be able to do? Do you still think that's one of the most attractive jobs that's going to be open?
I've written about this at SI. I think it's going to be treated like it's a really attractive job. Knowing what I know about the way that franchise does business and the way it's done business for a long time with the Spanos family, I do not think that job is that attractive. I don't think it's an unattractive job. I just think it's kind of a middle of the road job. Like, if you go there, first of all, from a financial aspect, okay, the Spanos family has historically been about as cheap as it gets. All right. I went back and I wrote all this out a couple of weeks ago. If you look, they've hired, I think this will be their 13th hire for head coach since they've been in charge since the mid 80s. They don't hire big names. Like Marty Schottenheimer's one. And they had one other one that was like somebody like you've heard of before. And otherwise it's been a whole bunch of take a flyer on this assistant and hope it works out. They don't spend money. Now, if let's say you're Jim Harbaugh and they do spend money. Okay, great. Well, you're not going to be in the state of California. So you're paying an astronomical amount on taxes. Plus you're paying for the cost of living of Los Angeles, which again, if you're making that kind of money, you don't necessarily care about the cost of living, but the taxes, that'll hit you. On top of that, team-wise, okay, you're the only team in the league. You have no home field advantage. None. So that's one strike. You're playing in division with Mahomes, who's 28 years old. That's another strike. You are playing with the rosters you mentioned, and I've outlined this as well. Like, out of those 4 guys you mentioned, Williams, Allen, Mack, Bosa, all of which are making over $30 million against cap next year. Those guys are either old, often injured, or both. Like, you're probably at least moving on from 2 of them, maybe 3 of them. Eckler's out the door as a free agent. I believe Gerald Everett's also a free agent. Corey Linsley, God bless him, he had to miss most of the year with a condition, a health condition. Who knows where he's sitting? If he's coming back, hopefully he is. I don't know. You're eating a ton of money next year on J.C. Jackson when you made that trade to New England. Like, that is a rebuild, man. Like, I think the fact that Herbert's there kind of skews people's reality. And it's like, well, you have Herbert. Yeah, great. You have nothing else. You have Herbert. You have Derwin James, who's another guy who, frankly, is he going to play this year? Is he hurt all the time? I mean,
yeah.
You have Herbert and a husk of a roster. Like, that's what you have. That is not attractive to me. I'd rather go, look, I don't think the Raiders' job's that great. I'd rather go to the Raiders. No state income tax. Like, pretty clean books for the most part. I'd rather do
We've got some guys. Raiders got some guys.
Yeah, I think the Chargers, that is such a lift.
Yeah.
And I think that Herbert's there. People just automatically go, that team, that's a great job. Is it really a great job? Is it? Would I rather go there than Carolina? Yeah, Carolina's a mess and Tepper's a maniac. I'll tell you where I would go. I think it's a great job for the first time in a quarter century, Washington. That job. Snyder's not the owner anymore. Harris owns the Devils and the 76ers. That guy wins. He spends money. He cares. On top of that, that is a fan base that is starving. If you go there and do anything, they're going to build you a statue. They have a lot of cap space. They also have the number 2 overall pick in the draft. Come on down, Drake May. Come on down, Caleb Williams. If I'm in that division, the Giants aren't good. Dallas is Dallas. And Philly, I don't know what the hell is going on in Philadelphia, but it's not great. If that, to me, that is a great job. That is a job you could go in there and you could win quickly in Washington.
Yeah, Philly is since that Chiefs game, they beat the Bills in overtime the next week. Then they lost to San Francisco, Dallas, and Seattle.
It's been unbelievable.
Beat the Giants, and then lost back-to-back weeks to the Cardinals and the Giants, who have absolutely nothing to play for, starting Tyrod Taylor. They're just careening off the tracks. Shout out to Siam Reddy for the super chat. This is in relation to the Chargers. They won't get Marvin Harrison Jr. Yeah, I believe the Chargers have the 5th pick. So probably not going to happen for Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, they're not getting Marvin Harrison Jr.
So
that's good. They're probably, honestly, I mean, look, you're the 5th pick. You're not taking the quarterback. So you're probably, I mean, if I'm them, I'm taking a defensive guy. Unless Marvin Harrison Jr. falls to them, then yeah, sure, go for it. But he's not falling to them. I mean, because who's in front of them? It's New England's in front of them. Obviously, the Bears via the Panthers pick, the Commanders, and who's got the 4th pick?
I'm pulling it up right now.
Just trying to do the math in my head. Who the hell is the 4th pick?
Chicago, Washington, New England, Cardinals.
Yeah, the Cardinals are not passing on Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
That. There's no way they'll let him get by them. So, the Chargers might trade up or something. But again, how many teams are going to trade down the top of that draft?
Right.
Well, look, that's a conversation for another day. The bottom line is, the Chargers have issues. And really, I'm going to be blunt. The whole AFC West outside of Kansas City, I mean, that is not a strong future bet looking at those 3 teams. I mean, you're like the Raiders, I don't know, no quarterback, no coach. Chargers got the quarterback, no coach, no GM, no roster around them. And Denver, I don't know what the hell Denver is. I don't know what that is. Like, okay, you're going to cut Russell Wilson, and then what? It almost feels like Denver did like what fans do a lot of times. They're like, get rid of this guy, and then they get rid of him. And you're like, who the hell are we going to replace him with? And you're like, I feel like that's what Denver did. Denver was just like, we need to get rid of him at all costs because Sean Payton can't stand him. And then you did it, or you're going to do it. You publicly did it, essentially. And now it's like, okay, but now what? Now what are you going to do? Like, what is the answer to this? Because if Kirk Cousins goes back to Minnesota, which I think is kind of the expectation around the league, like if he goes back there, who the hell are you signing? Who's coming in? You're going to make a trade for Justin Fields? Is that what you're going to do? You have no draft picks. You're going to make a trade for Fields? Probably not, right? So then it becomes, you're going to go get a bridge guy? You're going to get Ryan Tannehill? What the hell? What was the point of cutting Russell Wilson?
Right.
You know, so then it's like, okay, well, no, we're going to take a guy in the draft. Well, they pick what? I think 12th or 13th. So who are you getting? You're not getting the top guys. Jaden Daniels not going to be there either. So you're going to take Bo Nix?
Right.
I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. It's bad news for them.
Well, let's quickly talk about the playoff picture as it stands. The playoff field is set because the Jaguars, who are just in something else, bad play calling at the end of that one, they lost to the Titans and knocked themselves out. So that was basically a playoff game for them. They're done. And the Steelers, good old Mike Tomlin, by hook or by crook, drags that team to the playoffs every year. And all you hear from Steelers fans are how badly they want them to get fired. Got bad news for you, Steelers fans. Ain't going to happen.
Terrible news. Mike Tomlin's back. Damn. What are we going to do now?
I know he hasn't had the playoff success, but every time I hear that, my eyes roll back so far in my head, they come back around again.
Truly the dumbest people alive. We're like, you know what our problem is? It's not Kenny Pickett or our complete lack of ability to build a roster. It's Mike Tomlin. He's the problem. Yeah, but in any event. Yeah. So what are we talking about, the playoffs?
So the game tonight, Bills and Dolphins.
Right.
The playoff field is set. So there's two scenarios in regards to the Chiefs. If the Dolphins win, they're the 2 seed.
Yep.
And the Pittsburgh Steelers are coming to Kansas City because the Bills would drop to the 7 seed.
Yes. Great.
And if the Bills win, the Bills are the 2 seed, and Miami is going to be the 6, and they're coming to Kansas City in the first round of the playoffs.
Yes.
Do you have a preference both in which opponent would you rather play as a Chiefs fan in that first game, but also what sets up better for Kansas City going further into the playoffs should they win? Like, for example, you look at a 7 seed Buffalo and you're like, ooh, well, that's kind of interesting because they could, that's a really good team that could knock off the Ravens. And then, you have a chance to host the AFC Championship game, maybe a little bit better of a chance.
Right.
On the other hand, the Bills are going to make the playoffs no matter what now. Miami's super banged up. Would you rather have them coming in?
I would by a mile, mostly because of how it sets up long term. I'd rather have the Steelers in the first round because, look, I'm sorry. You guys can clip this out, and if I'm wrong, whatever, blast it out everywhere. There's no way they're losing to Pittsburgh. There's just no way. Mason Rudolph's beating that defense. You kidding me? I mean, that would honestly take one of these, like, they have like 6 turnovers. Like, that's what it would take. I mean, there's no world, man. Like, and now TJ Watt probably out and everything else. Like, I don't see it. I can see it being ugly. I can see it being some game where Pittsburgh like hangs around and it's hideous. I'm not saying the Chiefs would beat them 31-0, but like, even if it's ugly, what is that game? 20-10? I just don't think Pittsburgh can score.
Yeah.
Miami in Arrowhead doesn't scare me at all. They just don't. Like, I respect them more than I respect Pittsburgh. But again, like, you look at them and you're like, what is the big, like, well, you played them already. I think Spags against that offense is a nightmare for Miami because he can just throw them off rhythm. And, the Dolphins have pretty openly talked about the fact that going on the road is really hard for them offensively because it screws up all their timing and rhythm with motion. Well, guess what? Like, is there a harder place to go play in 5-degree weather than Arrowhead in January? I think the Chiefs will win either game. But if you get the Dolphins in the first round, unless a miracle happens and Pittsburgh beats Buffalo, you're going to Buffalo in the divisionals. And I'm going to be honest, I think at best that's a toss-up, and I'd probably pick Buffalo. Like, that's a hard place to go play. And that's going to be like the Super Bowl for the Bills, which maybe is a good thing because when it's the Super Bowl for the Bills, they lose. But I think, like, that to me is a much harder game than what I think would be the second game in the other scenario, whereas if they beat Pittsburgh, Buffalo and Miami just have a rematch next week in Miami. I think Buffalo would beat them in I think Buffalo would beat them in the playoffs. You draw the winner of Cleveland and Houston. I respect both teams. I think the Chiefs would beat either one of them at home. And then there's a chance you're playing Buffalo in the AFC title game at home. Like, I would pick Kansas City at home. I think it's that close. I would take the home team. And if they have to go to Baltimore for one game, fine. That being said, I think the biggest opponent of the Chiefs is the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Like, if the Chiefs play well, I'd pick him to beat anybody. I really would. But, like, that's the thing with the Chiefs. They don't play well all the time. So that's the concern.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this, and I know I mentioned this earlier, but I think look, and this is what I think will happen, right? Miami, now look, talk to the Jaguars, talk to some of these other teams today who needed to win and get in and couldn't. Like, anything can happen. But Buffalo's probably going to curb stomp Miami tonight. They've been playing well. Miami's hurt. So what's probably going to happen is Buffalo will be the 2 seed. Miami will come to Kansas City. Pittsburgh will go to Buffalo. Buffalo should. Anything can happen in the playoffs, especially good defense, Pittsburgh. Josh Allen gets wonky, but Buffalo should win. So I think what you're looking at in the likely scenario is that Buffalo moves down out of the wild card round. If the Chiefs beat the Dolphins, it's a tough game, but I think they can win it. Chiefs move on. And then I think Cleveland's gonna handle Houston. Houston's a great story, but if Joe Flacco doesn't melt down and throw a bunch of picks, I just don't think the Texans have enough offensive firepower to get by that Browns defense. CJ Stroud starting his first playoff game versus a Super Bowl champion like Flacco. Like, I just think the Browns are going to win. And I think the Browns, I honestly think the Browns have the best chance of, even more than Buffalo, to upset the Ravens in the playoffs. So I think we're going to get that divisional round game between the Browns and the Ravens. And if the Chiefs can get by Buffalo, you've got your AFC Championship game at Arrowhead against the Browns, and I'll take that. They're a good team, but I'll take that. It's going to be probably a 13-12 game again, but I'll
be
take
interesting.
it.
By the way, Watson has a calf injury. Morris is in concussion protocol.
Splendid.
So there you go. And Kelsey chose not to play. He made himself inactive.
And we need to talk about that really quickly. The last couple of minutes we have here. I'm glad he did that, but I'm sad as a fan of his work and his career. But that, you know what? If he gets healthy, we're not playing in this game, and not getting hurt to try to get 16 yards, and they go and win another Super Bowl, that's going to be like a really important footnote in his career story about how he sat out that last game and gave that up so that he could be ready for the games that really matter. It's pretty cool of him.
Well, listen, I think you got to be honest with yourself. And he's been beat up all year. I mean, he has not been himself all year long. And if this helps him a little bit, great. All the better. I mean, I look at it like this with him. I mean, that 14 yards, would have been cool and all. Like, I don't think it's keeping him out of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So at this point, hey, listen, you move forward. Now they're in the playoffs. Like the one thing I would say to kind of end this whole thing is like all the rest of this crap that's happened this year, good, bad, or otherwise, it doesn't mean a damn thing now. You're in the playoffs. You're going to host at least one game. And depending especially on what happens tonight, you might host 2, you might even host 3 of them. One thing I would say to people who look at the league and just assume things, and I used to do this all the time as a kid, so I've learned from my own error. This is not the NBA. This is not a 7-game series. Every game is game 7. And in the NFL, all it takes, some team has a really good game plan. Some team gets hot. You're playing better than the other team, but you know what? They get a great return, or you miss a field goal, or whatever the case may be. And all of a sudden, the favorite goes home. Things open up. The Chiefs, are they right now the pick to win the Super Bowl? No, they're not even my pick to get the Super Bowl right now. They're not. They haven't been consistent enough. At the same point, would I be shocked if they got back to the Super Bowl? No, I wouldn't be. I mean, in the AFC, I think you could make an honest case for Baltimore, Buffalo, Kansas City. I know some people would put Cleveland in there. That's fine. I would go with those 3 teams. I don't think anybody else is coming out of the AFC. And in the NFC, San Francisco to me is a far bigger favorite in the NFC than anybody is in the AFC. I just don't believe in Dallas. I don't believe in Detroit. I'll tell you what, man. You know the team I think could give them the hardest time in the NFC playoffs? The Rams. If I'm the Niners, I want no part of that team. None. I don't want to play them in a playoff game because they know them. They know them. They're not afraid of them. They play them all the time. The Rams won 7 of their last 8. And the Rams are loaded on offense. That's the kind of a team that if you catch them on the wrong day, they're a problem. In the AFC, man, I think the Chiefs will win their wild card game no matter who they play. And if they got to go to Buffalo, I'd probably pick Buffalo just based on the fact it's up there and the Bills are desperate. But I got to tell you, this is 1 year. The Chiefs have no pressure on them. If they go to Buffalo, all the pressure in the world's on Buffalo to win that game. I mean, if the Chiefs lose, so what? They've won 2 Super Bowls in the last 4 years. They're cemented in history. The Bills, if the Chiefs get up 7-0 in a game like that, you're just going to start to hear that whole stadium just, oh my God, again. Same thing with Baltimore, by the way. If Cleveland goes to Baltimore, all the pressure in the world's on the Ravens. Those 2 teams have so much pressure on them. I actually think it really does benefit Kansas City. I do.
It is going to be a fascinating NFL playoffs. Shout out to ZKB4BZ, making me crazy here for the super chat. It says thanks, guys. It's going to be a really exciting playoff field. Tonight's a really great game, a good way to end the season. It's for the division. It's for a 2 seed versus a 7 seed. I wish the Jaguars had won, so it was for the Buffalo fighting for their playoff lives. Would have they made the stakes even higher, but it's going to be a fascinating game, and it directly impacts the Chiefs and who they're going to play. So we're going to be here for you all next week. We're going to get you ready for this wild card game. So don't worry. We appreciate your support. Shorter show today because, you're playing Gabbert. So appreciate Matt Verderame joining us. Make sure you check out all his work over at Sports Illustrated this week. Shout out to producer Richard, to Sterling Holmes, Matt Connor, for the whole crew for getting you through this last game of the season. And shout out to all of our members who have been absolutely fantastic for us supporting this show. If you want to become a member, hang out in the private Discord with us. Go to members events. Check out the link in the description. We will see you guys on Tuesday. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.